Welcome to the Deeper Thinking podcast. At a time when traditional masculinity is being fundamentally questioned, figures like Elon Musk, Donald Trump, and Joe Rogan offer a reassuring, if oversimplified, vision of what it means to be a man. Each embodies a different facet of conventional manhood. Musk as the hyper-rational tech visionary who treats emotions as inefficiencies, Trump as the unshakable strongman who equates dominance with success, and Rogan as the rugged everyman who values physical toughness and primal self-reliance. Their popularity is not just about their individual achievements, but about the emotional comfort they provide to men who feel disoriented by changing gender expectations. These figures function as cultural anchors, offering a script that feels stable in a world where masculinity is increasingly complex. Yet, their appeal also exposes the limitations of their frameworks. Musk's reductive belief in logic over emotional intelligence, Trump's performance of power that masks deep insecurity, and Rogan's reliance on old-school masculine tropes all fail to address the deeper needs of modern men. Masculinity is not disappearing, it is evolving, moving beyond the rigid structures these figures represent. This brings us to the broader conversation about what masculinity can be when it is not tethered to outdated performances of control and dominance. The following sections explore this evolution, first by examining the emerging dimensions of contemporary masculinity, and then by addressing the tensions and anxieties that arise as old norms fade and new possibilities take shape. Rather than clinging to a nostalgic past, men have the opportunity to redefine strength, resilience, and connection on their own terms. Masculinity is not a static trait, but an evolving construct, shaped by shifting cultural norms and individual experiences. The rigid, hierarchical definitions of the past are giving way to a broader, more inclusive understanding, one that values diversity, emotional connection, and the rejection of harmful stereotypes. One of the most significant changes is the growing acceptance that masculinity does not have to be exclusionary. Traditional gender roles once dictated a narrow script, discouraging men from embracing traits associated with vulnerability or care. Today, however, a more expansive masculinity recognizes the strength in emotional expression, the necessity of trust in relationships, and the power of deep friendships. Research suggests that men who cultivate close, emotionally open friendships experience better mental health and stronger relationships. Rather than seeing emotional intimacy as a threat to their identity, many are beginning to understand it as an essential part of their well-being. Physicality, too, is undergoing a transformation. In the past, displays of affection between men were often discouraged, seen as incompatible with the prevailing notions of toughness and self-reliance. But a cultural shift is challenging these outdated restrictions, whether through shared experiences, platonic affection, or simple gestures like embracing a friend without reservation. Men are redefining how they connect with each other. The rise of the bromance signals this change, an acknowledgement that male friendships can be both deeply emotional and openly affectionate without undermining one's sense of self. Perhaps the most radical shift in contemporary masculinity is the growing resistance to the hypermasculine ideals that have dominated for so long. The glorification of aggression, emotional suppression, and unchecked dominance is losing its grip, making way for a masculinity that values care, balance, and mutual support. This is especially evident in changing attitudes toward fatherhood, where the role of a provider is being expanded to include active emotional engagement. These shifts are not happening in isolation. They reflect a broader realization that masculinity, like all social constructs, is fluid, able to adapt and evolve rather than remaining rigidly defined by outdated expectations. By embracing a masculinity that prioritizes inclusivity, emotional depth, and self-awareness, men are not only improving their own lives, but also contributing to a more compassionate and equitable society. This evolution of masculinity is not without its tensions. For many men, the shift away from traditional norms brings uncertainty. The old rules, where strength meant stoicism, leadership required dominance, and vulnerability was a liability, provided a clear, if limiting, framework. In their absence, some men struggle to define their identity in a world where expectations are no longer as rigid. This uncertainty can lead to resistance. often manifesting in the doubling down on outdated ideals or gravitating toward figures who promise a return to a more familiar, structured version of masculinity. Yet these tensions also open the door to a deeper conversation. Masculinity has never been a singular, unchanging reality. It has always adapted to the needs of society. The expectations placed on men in previous generations were shaped by economic structures, political realities, and cultural narratives. As these forces shift, so too must the ways in which masculinity is understood and expressed. The decline of industrial labour, the rise of knowledge-based economies, and the increasing emphasis on emotional intelligence in leadership all point toward a world where rigid masculinity no longer serves the same purpose it once did. A critical aspect of this transformation is the recognition that traditional masculinity has not only constrained women, but has also harmed men themselves. The expectation to always be strong, independent, and emotionally self-sufficient has left many men isolated, struggling with unspoken pain. Mental health statistics underscore this reality. Men are less likely to seek help for emotional distress, yet they experience higher rates of suicide and substance abuse. The cultural expectation that men should suppress vulnerability has not made them stronger. It has left many without the tools to navigate the complexities of modern life. At the heart of this shift is the idea that masculinity need not be an opposition to vulnerability, but an embrace of it. A man who acknowledges uncertainty, who listens as much as he speaks, who values connection over control, is he less of a man or simply a more complete one? The answer to that question will shape the future of gender dynamics, not just for men, but for society as a whole. What's emerging is not a rejection of masculinity, but an expansion of it. The ability to protect and provide is no longer tied solely to financial dominance or physical strength, but extends to emotional presence and mutual care. Friendships are no longer dictated by competition, but by depth and trust. Strength is being redefined, not as an absence of fear or vulnerability, but as the courage to acknowledge them. This is not about erasing masculinity, but about giving men more room to breathe. It is about recognizing that the old model has outlived its usefulness, and in its place, something richer and more humane is taking shape. The future of masculinity is not about loss, it is about possibility. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Deeper Thinking podcast, an audio essay read by me, Holly, your digital narrator. Until next time.